long time no post. I am back with a destashing project. I'm going to be doing some sewing destashing, so I am going to be destashing fabric. As you may have seen previously with my destashing, my favourite way to destash is to use up the items, so I'm going to be making a concentrated effort to use up a small quantity of items at like a section of my fabric stash. Now I've got little fabric stashes kind of all over the house. Not really like all over the house, but I've got a few. I'm going to concentrate on one of them. I've got the like fabric cube storage boxes, and I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I've got 9 plus 2 half ones plus a half one that's got corset things in plus like a bigger one. So my goal this week is to see if I can use enough fabric to remove at least one of those fabric boxes, like from my stash that I've used up, the equivalent of one fabric box. Ideally 2. So goal 1 is 1 box, goal 2 is 2 boxes. I will consider it a success if I have got round to doing any of the sewing projects that I've had in the back of my old brain meat, because I consistently just get distracted by knitting. And so then I never end up doing any sewing. And actually sewing doesn't take very long, isn't very difficult, and I have the skills. Bonus little parts of this challenge, I want to have quite a lot of it leave the house as well. So I want things to be made for other people, particularly, or like I think I want to make some kind of homewares as well, rather than just concentrating on making myself clothes. So if I see a piece of fabric and I'm like, I kind of want to use this, I don't really know what to do with it. I don't really know like what I might do with it. To be able to go like, oh, actually maybe that'll. I've lost myself already. I'm not gonna stop again. If I look at something, I'm like, I don't really know what I can do with it, but maybe I could make it a garment for myself. That's not my initial thought. So I've got a couple of projects that I've got kind of in the back of my brain that I've been thinking about doing for a while, and a couple of those are ones that I'm going to be starting with. But also I just kind of want to do some sort of other different things, and I've been thinking about it for the past couple of days because I knew I was going to do this challenge. So it's Sunday night, so the challenge starts tonight, tomorrow, whatever, I don't know. This week. It's Monday in an hour anyway. Monday night, I have a meet up with a pal. We're going out to the pub, and I thought it would be fun to make her a little like gilet jacket. So I've got this fabric from one of my fabric boxes, and we're saying I'm not just going to get one fabric box, work my way through it down to 0, because I don't think that would be helpful or fun or anything. I'm just going to use fabric from those boxes plus other places and stuff if I need to, because I've got like, I've got the perfect lining fabric or whatever in a different place. I'll use that if I need to, but yeah, I'm not just going to do that. I'm going to use whatever from whatever and then condense it down. It's not particularly organised by fabric type or anything. At one point it was, and now it's not. So this is the fabric I'm going to be using for that. It used to be a blanket. It was a waterproof blanket, and then I put it in the washing machine and the tumble dryer, and that messed up the waterproofness. So I removed the backing from it, so it's unlined at the moment, but the outside is like a nice, soft, furry blanket material. So I'm going to make that into a body warmer or a gilet, and I am going to line it because we met at kind of anti-fascist counter-protests, and because we were talking about using ethically sourced flags. I have some flags that were removed from lampposts as anti-fascist counter-protests because of the stuff that was happening, especially last summer, around like anti-refugee stuff like that. And I can't be doing with textile waste, so they do need to go into projects. So I'm going to be making this lined with my Union Jack flag. So that is project number 1, and the deadline for that is tomorrow night. I may or may not do some work on it tonight. I think I might cut the pieces. I'm planning on machine sewing that as well. So I'm going to make the jacket, and then I'm going to hopefully put some buttons and loops. I think that's going to be the correct choice aesthetically, as well as kind of giving enough flexibility for sizing. I did consider a zip, which I thought like might look quite good, but that means then I have to get it like spot on sizing, and my like estimation is sort of maybe like me, but like maybe let's make it a little oversized. So rather than having any kind of measurements from them. So that is project number 1. Project number 2 does not have a deadline, and I did start this one a little bit already. Some of the fabric is from those boxes, but also some of it's been held in other places. If you're a metalhead, you might be familiar with the idea of a battle jacket, which is usually a denim jacket with the sleeves cut off, and then you sew loads of band patches to it. I don't get on with those as a garment. For practical purposes, I get too hot and then you can't tie them around your waist or anything. So I'm making some battle trousers. So this is a jeans pattern that I made. And I've cut some like patchworky fabric, and then I'm going to be sewing like band patches over the top. So I started doing that. This is one half of one leg. And I just kind of laid it out and I've pinned it, and I am hand sewing these together. I think the construction seams I'm going to do on the machine, but all of these seams to hold the patchwork together, I think it's just easier to whip round them by hand. And then I'm going to be sewing more patches and stuff over the top, so I'm not too worried about them not being super sturdy every stitch, every seam. So that was quite quick to get started on that. But like this fabric is from that, the blue denim is from those boxes, and so is like this silver. So that should be a good use of that at the start. I will do progress. I think I'll show every finished item when they are finished. And I think I will show any box, like any empty boxes. So if I'm kind of going through and thinking, oh, this one's like most of the way empty, then I'll see if it organises down into it, and I will show if it's like, oh, it's Wednesday and I've emptied one box already. Otherwise, I will just organise everything down and show how empty my one box is. Because it'll definitely be a reduction, even if it's not like a full emptiness. So I will be back with either a finished garment or an empty box. I'm going to just say that considering I've pulled the fabric out and it's a single piece to make a garment, I suspect we are going to have a finished garment well before we have an empty box. Garment or item, a finished item. So I will see you when I have finished that body warmer. Bye. Okay, little update. I did finish that first garment, and the things that I have got left over from that is this much. Which is about an 1/8 or 16th even of the fabric that I had to start with, and now this is going to go into scrap. The really small pieces have already gone into the like thread cup, really small coal story pieces, so that can then be used for like stuffing or something later. I don't have any immediate plans for this, so I'm just going to pop it back in the box. It is smaller, so taking up a lot less space. I cannot show you the finished garment because I made it yesterday for somebody that I saw yesterday, because I was working at the weekend and that was the only time I had to like to do it. I cut out some of the pieces the night before and like measured it up. So I made my buddy this vest, but like I couldn't even film an update before I went out because I didn't take into account like building in time to fuck it up and need to redo bits because I don't know how it works, because before, when I've made like jackets with linings and I've done the bag lining thing, I've left the sleeves open and then I've like sewn up the cuffs, and that's been the way that I've turned it. But because I was making like a vest, I didn't have like a sleeve to tuck the cuff into to then finish the lining, so I like sewed those and just ended up creating like a tube through it, instead of having the lining sewn like so it folded back over itself, I managed to sew it so it was like face to face like little fighting fish, which then meant that there's no way that you can get your arm into it because it was a closed tube, and that was not what I was expecting to happen. So I had to like undo that, and the result of this was that I then had to go to the pub with a small sewing kit and sew the pocket edging in, which I was going to do by hand, but I had to sew it in the pub. Then I gifted it to my friend. So unless I filmed stuff in the pub, which I wasn't gonna do, that's it. That's gone already. So I can't show it to you. Just imagine it. It looked cute. The little I was expecting it to close a little bit more, but by the time I'd sewn it and folded it and stuff, it was a little bit more open. So just think of the little Aladdin vest. It's that. It's the Aladdin vest in this colour. But I have learned a couple of little lesson things from that. One is that, like with crochet and knitting, if I want to get something finished, if I make it that project that I attach to myself, I can find the time to do it when I'm out of the house as well as just when I'm here. And that means I can get through stuff much quicker. So what I'm going to do is, instead of just focusing on I want to use up fabric much quicker, I need to do it as machine sewing projects because they'll work more quickly. I need to also consider adding in hand sewing into the mix. And that I think is also going to be much more sustainable, long term, because I quite like hand sewing. And a hand sewing project I can take with me is going to be a thing that I can do more often than a sit down at a sewing machine, a process which I find very convenient, very quick, but also much less enjoyable for me just to do. It feels more like work rather than hobby. So one of the things I did a little bit of work on this last night are these patchworky trousers. So this is one of the pieces. My next door neighbours are doing some DIY work. So this is one of the back leg panels, and I've been patchworking these together. But I reckon if I do all of the pinning and cutting to make the right shape, I could take something like this that's full of safety pins out with me with my teeny little sewing kit, and that could be a travel project as easily as a knitting project could be. Not perfect in all the contexts, but that is something else that I can do. So I'm gonna try and cut some more for this, so then I can take the pieces out, measured and cut in here, and then just be doing the actual hand sewing of the patches together while I'm out and about. So that's something else to learn. I've got two things that I want to start with today. I'm doing a backdrop for the band that I sing with, and I'm appliquing letters on. I've been working on it for a little while. It's not pulling fabric out the back, but while I'm doing a sewing focus, we've got a gig on Sunday, it would be nice to just get it finished. So I've got the two letters to do on that. I have to do a Z and an E, and then the entire thing is done. It shouldn't take too long, but it'd just be nice to get it out of the way. The next thing that I'm working on for the fabric project specifically, so I'm going to use some of this. I made a little cat/dog bed that looks like an armchair out of polystyrene, and I put fabric over it. For my dog didn't like it. I gave it to my friend. His cat loves it. It's been sat in his conservatory, and the lining, the fabric that I used to cover it, has gone brittle in the UV because of the sunshine. Has bleached a pretty unattractive shade of salmony pink, and has got a massive rip in it from the cat jumping up and down on it. It's got brittle, it's ripped. So I'm going to use this fabric, which is quite pretty. I don't have any specific purposes for it. I think it'd be really cute as handkerchiefs, and I have made a couple of handkerchiefs and I've used it as lining for stuff. But I've got an absolutely massive chunk of it from my friend. So I'm going to make a sort of cat bed thingy like that. I took a little bit of time thinking about how much structure I wanted to give it. I'm thinking I'm going to make just a square folded over, hemmed so all of the edges are inside, and then I'm going to do a light amount of quilting. I'm not going to put any batting in it because I don't know the exact dimensions, and I want to get going on it quicker than my friend's going to see and like text me back having measured it. So I'm thinking I'm just going to use some quilting to hold the two pieces kind of together. I'm thinking I'll do like a little design and we can see how well that shows up. And I've got black thread set up on the sewing machine, and I'm intending on just using that. So we'll see how well that shows up against the backdrop, against this fabric as a backing, and how it feels as a piece of fabric. I'm curious about that. I haven't done much quilting, but I'm not going to put any batting in it, so I'm going to leave it as kind of like mostly floppy, but with like a little bit of additional structure. So I will see you when one or both of those things are done. Ciao! You guys, I don't know if my creative brain can keep up with how quick machine sewing is. It's like an hour and a half later, and as somebody whose projects are usually like based around like knitting, which takes ages, and hand sewing, which takes ages, I've started and finished a whole project, very simple, and I finished the other one. I finished the backdrop. So this is what I've made for my friend's cat. It is not necessarily very visible on here, but I'm happy with it. I've essentially made a pillowcase sized object, and just folded it, like sewed it inside out, and then just folded it and turned it through a little hole, which I sewed up very wonkily. Looks cute. And then I kind of did some like quilting. I used the edge of my machine to try and like help with the first line, because that gives you that measurement. I'm going to say it's probably a 2-inch measurement, and that's how I did the edge one. But then as soon as I put it over, it covered that up. So I was just eyeballing it. So I've got some real wonky situations happening. And I've done concentric rectangles, and then I put this little diagonal in there. I thought, oh, that'd be really fun. I'll go around and I'll do that after. And I was like, actually, that sounds like it's going to be a real pain in the butt to do just like a tiny little bit and then have ends to deal with on either edge of it. So I like went around, did the corner, came back out, and then like went around some more. So I've got these like 3 concentric rectangles, and the one in the middle's got this little diagonal-y guy on it. And I think that is the right like material, size, structure, feel. I think that's the right amount of effort, work, and like material to put into this project. Like, it's very practically the correct answer. And I quite enjoyed the creativity of just making up the quilting, because it was a real low stakes scenario. It was like the least precise thing, and that was very like freeing, I think. So it really fits that whimsical, free, creative play, and it means that I've done something for my buddy. So yeah, that's nice and easy completed. And I finished the backdrop that I'd been working on and putting off and whatever, which means I can show it to people at band practice later, and we can use it for the gig on Sunday. Order some clamps. So I was putting in the last letters. The band is called Zen Judaism. Check us out on everything. So I put the letter Z and E on it, which means it is now done. And this has also used up like a really big chunk of fabric, because it's like a big backdrop. If I hold it out with my arms, like my arms aren't long enough to hold the entire size of it, because it's designed to go like behind someone on a stage. So yeah, we'll see how that works on Sunday. Fingers crossed I'll have somewhere that we can just like clamp it up at the back of the stage. I've not been to the venue before, so we'll just have to see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, then maybe we can just like pin it up in a rehearsal space and like get a picture of it that way. So that might also be possible. And now I've got to work out what I want to do next. The other thing that came to mind was I was making like a spinning star, and I was joking with my friend about making like a really massive one. So I might have a go at doing that, and just using up some supplies that way. I might like give it a rope edging and stuff to give it like good weight, so then that'll use up some of the rope stash too. But I am not sure. So I'm going to go upstairs, I'm going to have a look in the fabric book, and I'm going to see what I feel inspired to do, and then come down and do something else. Okay, it took a little moment to be overwhelmed and creatively void before I decided that I would have a go at making a big spinning star for my friend Tor. I thought that'll be fun, he'll have fun, we might even have fun spinning it together, and it'll be a laugh. And he might even want it, so then it will also be out of the house, which is part of the goal. So I took some more of this fabric. I've got like this amount. I did not measure it, I just folded it so it made a square. So I've got 2 squares as big as the fabric would allow me to have, and actually I think it might be 80 centimetres because I found that I had these cushion covers in Stash. I had originally bought them to use as corset fabric because it's quite sturdy, it's a polycotton, pretending that it's linen. But I stopped making corsets before I used it, so I'm going to use it for this. And these are 40 centimetres by 40 centimetres, as it said on the packaging, because it still had the little band around it. And when I put these like next to each other, it's like the edge of a square. So I'm going to use, and I've got 4 of them, so it works out nicely for working with squares. And I'm gonna do like a checkerboard pattern, nice and simple. Gonna back both squares on it, and then the squares go offset to put them together. So I'm gonna make it like a big pillowcase, so essentially like this, with this on one side and this on the other side. And then I'm going to use some old rope, which we don't need for anything, but I was like, don't throw it in the bin, I can craft with it. I'm going to use that as an edging. So I'm going to put that in around the inside edge of my pillowcase that I make with the giant pieces put together. And then I'm going to sew along there, and I think that'll give it like a nice sort of crispier edge, well, essentially like a piped edge, but from its own fabric. And it will also give it weight in the edge, and hopefully that'll make it enough that it can be spun. I can do it with this, like that. Generally the process of spinning it, so it'll make it pretty. And when you put the pieces together, they're on a 45-degree angle. So you make a shape that looks like that, and then that's the thing that you spin when it's all sewn together so it doesn't all fly apart. So that is what I'm going to make next. And another piece of learning, because these challenges are all about learning, I was using these instead of the like half boxes, and I put a whole load of scraps in there. And I'd kind of already known I didn't like that. You can't see what's in there. You can't kind of go in and rummage when I'm like, oh, I need a lining for this bag. Let's go and see what's in Stash. I couldn't see it in here. So this turns out to be like totally fine for yarn, because I use this as like that big beanbag behind me is just full of yarn. And I use it as a yarn storage, and that's great for a rummage because you can kind of just go in, find what you need. That works really well. But for fabric, it doesn't seem to. So I put the fabric out of these so I could take these and use them in this project, and back into these little like half height boxes, and my gosh, can you squash it into these, because there was just so much in that, and it's just really reaffirmed kind of what I already knew. And the whole purpose of this project is that the amount of fabric that I have and the amount of fabric that I use, like I just have so much more than I need. And I have been making like pretty good efforts to not buy more, or like you go into a fabric shop and then you want a fabric and yarn shop and they don't have any of the yarn you like because you're kind of a little bit pickier now, because you're not necessarily a yarn snob, but like a little bit more of a yarn snob, so you're going to be less satisfied with the easy stuff. But you know, you're less of a fabric snob, so maybe you just get like a fat quarter, maybe like a little fat quarter set, and you've got 8 bits of fabric that are kind of all just this big each. But I don't even do enough sewing to justify that, let alone with the whole like, hey, do you want this old duvet cover? Which like I do use, and I do sew, I do use the projects, and I do sew from Stash all the time. And the Stash that I have definitely isn't as big as some people's, even like my friends, not just people on social media. But it is still absolutely excessive for what I want. So I think this has just been a really, really good thing at reaffirming that was in fact correct, and this is like a good thing to be doing. But I do also now think, because like if I've got loads of yarn and I want to de-stash that, I'm going to start cutting this while I'm talking, because like if I've got loads of yarn and I want to de-stash it, then it's really easy to just do like, oh, I'll hold multiple strands together and I'll crochet. That is a really quick yarn eater thing. I can make whatever I want to make with that, like when I was doing previous stash busting stuff with yarn, that's like the quick way to use it up. So making the yarn as thick as possible, working on a really big gauge, crocheting it instead of knitting it, are all things that that make it go through quicker. But I don't know what the equivalent of that is for sewing. I don't know how to do a really quick, dramatic stash bust. I thought maybe just like making some really big pieces would be the way to do it. But I don't know if this is just because like I don't have loads of big chunks of fabric, or so I've got lots of little like tiny scrappy bits that are more like fat quarter size things, or if it's just like my lack of experience, or there's some creative bit missing because I'm too busy thinking about like garments and garment construction. But like I don't know how to get through the fabric really quickly, or perhaps how to combine things. I guess as well, it's if you're combining different yarns, you kind of just tie them on and keep going, and it's pretty easy just to stripe stuff in. But every time you have in a second piece of fabric, you have to sew that in and then deal with all of the seams and finishing and stuff like that as well. So perhaps that's part of it. Like I think there's a part of me emotionally that wants to patchwork, but also that doesn't necessarily enjoy the process of patchworking. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I just need to cut all of my fabric into yarn and crochet it into massive baskets. That feels like a bad idea actually, but I don't know. Because it is important to me to have a little fabric stash. So I wouldn't want to just get rid of all of it. And in the world where you're trying to be environmentally friendly, I think there's only so many causes you can really, really hitch your wagon to. And I've really hitched my wagon to trying to reduce textile waste. So trying to not throw away clothing even when it's like terrible quality, or like when my friend doesn't need a duvet cover or something like that, and just, yeah, I'll rescue it. I'll bring it back with me. But then you end up with these big stashes, and then you have like a big guilt thing because it's not doing what it can. So yeah, more thoughts on that, and hopefully doing this process will give me some more time to think on those thoughts. Yeah, that's it. So making a Dapo star, having some more thoughts, and enjoying the loud construction from next door. I say they're doing DIY. My neighbours on either side are actually builders, and the guy on this side, his dad's a builder as well. So based on the vans and stuff outside, I think his dad is doing some sort of big renovation project on their house, maybe in the hallway that connects to our house. So I think it might be, like in some ways it is DIY, but if you're a professional, does it still count as DIY? Big thoughts. Let me know in the comments. Also, if anybody sees this that is, because I'm aware that my videos get like 12 views, which is totally fine. That is, for the fame and the money and the success isn't the reason that I do it. But if anybody does watch this and they are kind of into sewing and they've got answers to the questions, especially if I don't come up with anything by the end of the video, please do let me know. I would genuinely just like to answer these questions, and I don't care if the answer doesn't come out of my own brain. So yeah, and I'm going to keep cutting these up. I'm just cutting it separate so that I can start Fattenberg caking, chest square it to that. Will it rip? No, I'm going to keep cutting. I'll catch you in a bit when I'm done. Hello, it's Sarah from the future here. I appear to have some lost video footage. I think based on looking at the next bit when I was going through editing, what I forgot to mention was that I was making some armour for my friend for performing in this band. I wanted to make some weird gua style armour, like some small pieces of it. And my band's not appropriate for it, but his band is, so I've taken a little cardboard template of his shoulder. I cut some pieces out of stiff fabric that was used for blinds, that kind of thing, and then I'm wrapping it in black fabric. I'm going to paint it silver, apply it to some bit of webbing and make a t-shirt that stops here. I got his measurements when he happened to be over a couple of weeks prior to this, and these are some of the pieces. I'm actually working on them while I'm editing, but this is what one of the pieces looks like when it came out. So they're going to sit on the shoulder all pointy like that. So I think the bit that I missed was that I had cut these out and I was putting them in my bag because I did the first one at band practice. subsequently I've got a couple of them done, but I went away on holiday, so I'm still doing some other ones. There's going to be 3 on each side in total. The other thing that you missed is the Dapper reveal, and I did give it to my friend, and actually got some footage of them spinning, which they said that I could include in this vlog. So please enjoy some footage of my friend doing a very expert job of spinning the big star that I made. Honestly, seeing me holding it up in my living room is nothing compared to seeing it in motion. And hopefully I won't be back in to replace some more lost footage. Sorry about that.
It needs weight around the outside.
It has weight round the outside. I put a rope in it. Perfect. Okay, so I'm working on the armour that I mentioned yesterday, but the pieces, I've cut the fabric, but it's going to just be like hand sewing. So I've put that kind of in my bag with the hand sewing project. I took it out to band practice yesterday, and then I'll take it on the train tomorrow and stuff like that. So that one's going to just be like a travel project with some machine sewn elements when all of the little armour pieces are done. So no particular rush on that. But while I am still at home today with access to the sewing machine, I thought I would start on the next piece to see if I could pull a little bit more fabric out of stash. So today's challenge is to make a cover for my bass amp. So I've seen these covers like before just as fabric ones. Basically it's a thing that goes like on over the top. It just kind of stops it getting dusty or like beer spilt on it and stuff like that when you're travelling or when you're not using it. And since I am looking to put this up in the loft and to have it as part of the jam space, and I'm not like actively playing bass in a band or anything at the moment, it's going to be kind of sat storagey for a while, so that makes a lot of sense to have something that's going to keep it a little bit nicer while it's waiting. So it's basically like making a cube that'll slide on over the top of this with no base to it. So it's just like a top like that with a hole for the handle. So then when you have the cover on, you can still reach down and pick it up by its handle. Bonus part for this is that this amp, like a lot of electricals you use for bands, the power cable is something that you plug in separately. One of these called a kettle lead. So I want to make, because having it, if you have it stuck in the back all the time, which you can do, there's no like problem for the amp as far as I'm aware, then it sticks out pretty badly, and therefore it just makes it kind of like harder to store, more likely to get kind of knocked and damaged and stuff like that. So you usually store it like that, so then it's got like a real flat profile on the back. So I want to make a little pocket on the back of this cover that I can then slide the kettle lead into. I'm thinking just like a patch pocket that's open. I'm considering putting a little bit of Velcro on it, depending on how big it is and how kind of droopy it is and how much it looks like it's likely to fall out. But to be honest, I guess like if it's that long, I've got it folded up this way, then like if I just make it a long bit down the back, that'll probably be alright, and it won't necessarily need anything to close up the top. But I could put some Velcro, or I could put like a button and do a little buttonhole or something like that. But I'm gonna probably attach that after I've made the main sort of body of everything. Also as a bonus, I was thinking about how you could put a jack lead in there, so I can make another pocket for this. This is the one that goes between the amp and the bass. And also like a holder for plectrum accessories and stuff. At the moment I'm just using this stupid little box that my friend gave me with a really ridiculous plectrum in it. So I could potentially make like a plectrum holder or something else to go on there too. Yeah, but I'm going to start with this. So fabric wise, I found yesterday when I was emptying out my like scraps cushions to reclaim the cushion covers to make the spinning star, some fat quarters or like little bits of fabric I think I got from my friend, and I really liked this one, so I want to put this one on the top because I think it's going to just look the best. And with this I thought this would pair really well. I don't know how much coverage I'll get out of these. They're like relatively big, and I sort of opened one out, so I think it'll be easy enough to get one panel out of them, but I don't know whether I'll get kind of the sides or anything like that. I've also got, I wanted to use this, but all of the pieces are quite small. They're kind of like handkerchiefy size. They're like 4 of this size, so then I don't think they'd make a single panel. I don't think there's any combination I can put them in, and I could sew them together like end to end to make them longer or wider or whatever. I think there's 4 of them, so I could make a really quite big square, which would be a panel, but I don't know that I necessarily want to work on the seams for that. So I'm thinking these might end up being the pockets at the back for the cables. I think I've got sort of 4 of them. I just grabbed out everything that I had, figured I'll use what I want and then put anything back that I don't use. I found this, which I think doesn't quite go as nicely as the stripes for the vibes, but there's a lot more of it. And it's kind of a similar cotton in this gingham, and there's loads of it, so I'm thinking that this will work well to kind of cover 1, 2 panels or whatever. Maybe I can put this one on the back with the stripes over the top of it. That'll look amazing or hideous. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's a case that's going by base amp. And I also found this fabric, which there's very much not much of it, but it goes really well with the greys. And I really like it. So I thought I'll bring that down as well, and I'll see if there's a use for that. So maybe if I've got kind of something like that on the back, maybe I do the pockets out of that, or one of the pockets out of it. There's not a lot of it, which is a shame, but I figured I'd bring it down if I could make use of it anyway. And one of the things that I thought might be quite nice is if I made it thicker, so that it's got a little bit more like protection. If anyone like knocks it slightly, that it's less likely to lose anything. So I've brought this down, which is the other half of the blanket I was using first, that like navy blue blanket. Like one side was that navy blue and one side was this kind of sheet thing. I think I'm going to just have that on the inside. I was thinking about like quilting it, and I was thinking about like maybe quilting it by hand, but I think I'm just going to use it as a lining, and then I'll see how much it needs for like holding the pieces together. Like if the lining's really separating away from it and it needs some of that stitching, then I'll add that. But otherwise I'm not sure if I will. The panels aren't very big, especially if I like join it at each corner. I don't know. We'll find out. So that's the plan. I'm gonna machine sew everything together. I'm gonna cut the panels, machine sew it all together, machine sew the lining, and combine them, and then look at adding pockets, quilting if I need to, and just find out where we end up with that. Oh, and I've also learning, because I said that I wasn't really sure when like I destash fabric, it's like, oh, hold multiple strands together. When I destash yarn, holding multiple strands together and crocheting it rather than knitting it seems to be quicker, and I was thinking, well, machine sewing is going to be quicker than hand sewing, but actually hand sewing means that I can do it more in more locations. And the answer for destashing fabric: thick fabrics. Grab the thick fabrics out of stash. So I'm thinking that I need to have a little focus on making stuff out of wool, and out of fleece, and out of like the fatter fabrics that way, which I think means I might need to pick up that fleece project that has been hanging around in the back of my head for a while. But that's a little bit more work and patterning, so we'll see how far we get. Ta-da! The cover is complete for the base amp. So this is the front, sides, back, and the top with the handle hole. Exactly perfect, came out amazing. Slightly padded, easily slides on and off, which is great. I did worry a little bit that I was going to make it too tight, but I have not done that. So yeah, nice little piece. I've put one of the pockets on the back. This was just a singular one of the pieces of fabric that I had. And it fits the cable in perfectly, and there's no... It feels like it's deep enough and it's not gaping open or anything, so it doesn't feel like it needs any Velcro or anything on the top of that, which is nice. Saves me a job. And the inside is entirely fuzzy lined. So that's used up the other piece of that blanket, which I used on Monday to make that jacket. So that is all done and covered, and that will keep the dust off that and keep the cable with it as well. So that's exactly what I wanted it for. weirdly discovered that for sewing the lining where it was that thicker fabric, I really wanted to do that by hand, and I did some piecing as well. So I sort of buttered stuff up against it. I think I showed the jeans that I was making that I cut like on Sunday or something, and I sewed it in the same way. I've just put the stuff down and then like hand sewed over it. Turns out I quite like that as a method for patchworking, especially with fabrics of different textures, weird shapes and stuff like that. So something to keep in mind as I'm trying to like piece together bits to make projects with patchworking. But oh, excuse me. I really preferred sewing the cotton, the outer layer, on the machine. So I ended up hand sewing the lining and hand sewing the lining to the outside bit, so that's all like whip stitched around the top, and sewing around the bottom as well. But I machine sewed all of the outer part of it, and I don't know why I was like keen to do it that way round. So yeah, but I did, and that's just like a nice thing to know that I've got both options available. We're not questioning it. This is how much fabric is left from it as well, which is great. So there was less of this than I felt like. There's still enough to do like another panel or something with it. And I've still got 3 of these pieces, but I've got just some really teeny bits of the fluffy fabric, which I'll just keep as essentially like batting, small pieces of batting, which I can put together, little bits of the star fabric, but really small pieces, and some proper tiny bits of the mandala-y fabric, which I'm so glad that I used. This is such a good project for it because I like it, but I don't love it, but it's nice. So it looks cool in this context, where I'm going to be able to see it, and yeah. That was like a real perfect moment. I went into Stash to look for fabric for it, and I was just like, this is perfect. I started on the next project because I had people over this evening, and that is a cover for the base. So I found, in the spirit of using up some of the thicker fabric, I've got this wool which is like red. Both sides of it are quite nice, so I've got like red background with beige and beige with like the red details. Decided that this side looked like nice with like the red stuff on it. It's got some medieval animals as well, so it's got some birds on it and stuff. And I've made that to put the actual base in. It's a soft case, so it'll provide a little bit of protection and a strap, just make it a bit easier to carry around. I'm not actively gigging with a base, but it'll kind of keep the dust off it as well when I'm not practicing. To make it strong enough, I have this strap. So I've put this so it'll go around the neck, which is what it's in now, so that'll kind of give that extra support rather than just needing to hang off the fabric like this bit. So fingers crossed that'll make it that much stronger for carrying it around. And I've made it like a bottom opening one. Originally I was thinking that I would run a zip like the whole way around because I've got some really long zips in Stash. But then I just found like a smaller zip and I was like, why make it harder? Let's just do a small zip round the bottom, and then that way I can just slide it in that way. So that's what I'm going to do. I am just in the process of using the zip I cut off the cushion cover from when I made the Dapo style yesterday. So I'm going to use this to make a little pocket on the front, and then I can put leads in that. It might be big enough for the strap, fingers crossed. I'm kind of just going to use whatever bit of scrap fabric. The edges look like it's not going to fray. It's kind of got the look of some woven wool that's been fulled. So it's very non-frayy as I've been working with it. So I think I'm just going to leave it with like the raw edge exposed. And I've left the raw edge exposed on the inside. I've just sewn a straight seam and turned it inside out. Oh, there's a puppy scratching at the door. So I'm going to use like the back side of it, so then I get the other side of the fabric. I'm going to make it as big as I can to cover like the body of the base, and the top is going to be as long as this, like whatever the limiting factor is, I'm going to make it as big as I can. And yeah, put the zip in the bottom along the underside so I can close up the case and get the base in and out. And then I'll be going back into my stash and seeing what's in there for the next project. But I can't imagine this one's going to take particularly long. I've mostly been machine sewing it, but I may end up hand sewing at least one half of the zip. I don't know. we'll see how easy it is to do on the machine, and I'll just do whatever's easiest, because that's my vibe when it comes to sewing. Whatever's easiest. Catch up with you in the next bit. Case is finished. Ta-da! And it's got the base inside it, so I know it definitely fits. Yeah, so I've got the fabric with this side out. I put a big pocket on the front, so that's what this is. And I'm not very good with like pattern placement and pattern matching. I know it's a thing that people do. It's not something I generally bother with. But when I cut out this piece of fabric, because I was like, I'm just going to make it really big, so that I can put things in there. I wanted to put the jack lead and I wanted to put plectrums in there. But I reckon I've made this big enough I can also put a notebook, which feels like it's kind of cool, or some snacks or whatever. But when I cut it out, I was thinking initially I'll put the zip at the top, so that I can have it like to go in and stuff. But then I thought it will show the zip tape too much. Like the top edge would just be like that. The bottom edge would be like covered like this, but the top edge would be like out. So I thought, oh, maybe I can put it sort of lower or in the middle or something. And I realised I got the squirrel in it. I realise now, like from looking at it more, it's a squirrel and not a rabbit. So I put the zip in underneath, so the squirrel's almost sat on it, which is cute. I don't normally bother with that sort of thing. But yeah, it's the zip is in the bottom. I managed to do it almost all by machine, and then like just those edgy cornery bits. So like this bit I did by hand, so just a little bit of the hand stitching. But yeah, it's a soft case, so it'll stop it getting dusty and it'll keep it a little bit more protected if it's in someone's car or something like that. But it's not particularly padded. It's just wool that's like this thick. So it's more padded than nothing, which is what I was currently working with. And I guess if I'm gigging regularly, then I can make or buy something that's a little bit sort of better, a little bit more developed. But this works great at the moment. My strap appears to be working well as well. So one end is sewn in and held in with stitching, the other one is just cinched, so it's providing some extra support for the neck. But yeah, it sits quite nicely on the shoulder as well. It's a good length. And this way, if I want to try and play through the case, he's muted the strings now, Hannah. Yeah, it pretty much sits on like you're wearing it. But yeah, so that's that bit done. Leftover fabric wise, I've got some like medium sized scraps. I've got a little bit left over. Just some little bits. They are just going to go back in stash. But like taking a piece of like big fabric and turning it into this, it's sort of like turning a double bed sheet into a pillowcase. So pretty happy with that. I'm gonna have to go and have a look at the other bits of wool that I've got, and the other bits of fleece and the other bits of like thick fabric. We also destashed some fabric because my friend that came over this evening was saying that she wanted some different fabrics for patches, and I was like, oh, would you like these small pieces? So I gave her like just a couple of little bits like that and some of the like smaller scraps that I had just sitting around from the amp cover. But yeah, I'm going to go and have another look in stash, see what I've got. I'm quite intrigued with the idea of making, I've got some like tweed, like traditional green tweed, which I don't have a particular use for. I'm thinking about making like a baseball cap with ear flaps. So then it can keep like nice and warm in the winter, but like also keep the sun off, and then that might cover like 90% of the British spring. For when you need like a wool hat because it's cold and your ears are going to get chilly, but also the sun is in your eyes. I got sunburn yesterday, but I still feel like the woolly hats aren't ready to go into the cupboard. Yeah, so I'm going to go and have a look, see what I've got, ideally what's in thick fabrics, go put all of the scraps back in the boxes, and have a little think, and I'll show you whatever, some sort of update on the next bit. Okay, so we've done a little hunt through the fabric stash, and I've decided on the next little project. Also, I found this, which is like a loose-ish woven fabric, which I think I was originally planning on making some trousers out of. And I was looking at it going, do I want to try and make trousers? I have got a trouser pattern now that I know works. I can cut the pieces out and just sew it. This looks like it's going to fray like a mother fluffer when I cut it. So actually it is hemmed. It does look like a blanket. It's completely synthetic and the colour is just a little bit too yellow for me to be enthusiastic about it. So I'm just going to donate this to a charity shop for them to sell it as a blanket or something like that. So this is going out from Stash as donation. That's not my plan for a lot of it, but that's what's happening with that. I had a little desire to make a pair of ballet slippers out of black satin, and I'm sure I have black satin upstairs in the stash somewhere, but I couldn't find it. My partner's just done a lighting setup, and we'll probably walk into the video in a second because I've seen them come back. But I've got some pink satin, so I'm gonna have a go at using this to make a mock-up. Hey, just filming. So I'm going to have a go at using either, I've got some white and I've got some pink. So I'm going to have a go at using these to make like the mock-ups, just sort of try out sort of the satiny fabric, just to make like regular ballet slippers. But I had some little black ones. I did ballet at school, like because we had to, and they gave us the slippers in the right size, and my feet grew because I was a kid. And I outgrew the little black ones, and I was really sad about it, and I had to go back to wearing the pink ones. So I'm going to make myself some black ones, but I'm going to start with making some pink ones and just see how we go in those. And then I'm hoping that my neighbour's the same size as me and might want some ballet slippers that kind of fit the feet, or that they might be big enough and stretchy enough that my bestie can have them. I don't know. We'll see. But I have also been able to pull out this fabric, which I don't know what it's actually for, but it's really good for making like the soles of slippers because it's like rubbery on the bottom. So it's like this felt with little rubbery nubs on it. So I've only used it for making like the bottoms of slippers. So yeah, I'm gonna make some little ballet pumps. It's not gonna use, I've got loads of this and it's only gonna use like that much twice for each pair, but I thought this will be like a nice little technical design challenge. So I've got my pattern paper, my recycled kebab prop paper, so I will just measure, cut and play around with these bits. I was looking at some of the fabrics and some of it are things where it's like I don't want to use this just for the sake of using it. I want it to wait for the right project. So some of the stuff is going to be used for the sake of using it. The little bits of pink satin, entirely happy to just use them for the sake of using it. There's nothing special that they're there for. But some of the other bits are definitely things I want to like keep in stash, so it's good to be able to identify a little bit of that. I don't know if maybe I could go through and organise by that. That might be part of this process that I wasn't expecting, of like stuff that I can just kind of use as whatever, and then things that I want to have like a more specific and like purpose for. I don't know that that'll be helpful actually, but yeah, something to consider sort of in this process. What do I want to use just for the sake of using it? What might I actually be able to just part with, and where can that go to that's sensible? And what do I just want to use up, and what needs to wait for the right project? So I will come back with an update when I'm either further through with this or have abandoned it because it's too difficult. So my partner told me that the movie yesterday was good and worth watching. Finally got round to it, and it was pants and I didn't like it. But slippers! I made them. They are good. Like, the prototype has worked. I do not know what project I'm going to do next. I mean, next I'm going to have lunch. But yeah, I think there is some like fit stuff like around the edge. I've got a little bit of like bunching, and like particularly around this part of the foot I've got very narrow feet, and I think the top could be prettier somehow, but yeah, they work. They haven't fallen off yet. I've only been wearing them around the house for like a few minutes, but they're done. My pattern, should it please the court, looks like this. So I've got the one upper piece, one back piece, and then the sole. At the moment I've left the inside unlined as far as the sole goes, but to finish the top edge I basically just did a bad lining. So I cut 4 of these and 4 of these, so 2 for each foot, and then just 2 of these, so just the bottom layer. I think if I was going to do it properly, I should also cut 4 of these, so I can then use it as like a lining bit. Sewed this bit to this bit, so that made like the shoe shape. Like that. And then just did a running gather stitch like all around this bottom edge. And that pulled it in like teeny tight. And then just stuck this over the top of it. So that's my construction. And I sewed around the top bit with the second piece, so I've got it lined. So the inside's really messy. I think if I had an extra piece I could put that in on the top and sew that in at the end. And because these are super flexible, they'll turn inside out. But they've got all the gathering that ballet shoes do. From looking at ballet shoes, this is where the seams are. So I think I've done the construction about right. But yeah, this is much easier than I was expecting it to be. Basically made like one mock-up and then it was fine. So yeah, that's a ballet slipper one. So at whatever point I can find other materials, I will make some more of those. So I'm thinking I'm going to make myself some black satin ones. That's like the real goal, and I might put the leather on the sole rather than that because I've got some scrap leather about. And eventually, when I've like made myself some new ones, I will give these to my neighbour to mess about with because they're not my style and they're not her style either. But she's an artist in her own right, so we'll be able to like add stuff to that. So I'm gonna have some lunch now, and then maybe get myself back to the stash. I'm going out this evening, and so I've got like quite a lot of train travel. So I might see if I can put something together to sew on the train. Who knows? Okay, it's after 2 in the afternoon, so it's probably time for me to get dressed and start getting myself ready to go out because my train is at 4 and I need to get the bus there. So I have prepped myself for going out because I'm going on the train. I'm going to be a couple of hours today, a couple of hours tomorrow, and I am over prepping craft projects because the worst thing to have happen to you is to be out and to run out of craft project. The worst. So I've got... this is the armour I don't think I showed. I cut it out on Tuesday and I sewed the first piece when I was out Tuesday night band practice. So I've got 6 of these to do. Well, I've got 1 done, I've got 5 to do. So I've got this thick green fabric which is quite stiff, and as you can see it creates something that's quite sturdy, and that is going to go over the shoulder to create some sort of gua style armour for my friend. So I'm going to finish doing those. I'll then need to paint them, attach them to the strap, and I'm going to make like a little t-shirt thing on it. So I can make the t-shirt because I've got my friend's measurements. I can make all of these. I don't think I have any silver paint, so I'm going to have to source some of that before I can finish all of the construction, but I can do the work on these. And I've also pinned out the 2, I'm not sure if I showed them, 2 panels. They're semi-sewn together, semi-pinned with safety pins so that they're foldable and pickable up and move around. These are the back panels for the jeans that I'm making. So that's the darts, that sews up to make like more of a bum shape. And yeah, some of the jeans like had patches sewed on already, so they're just staying there. And I'm just sewing it with the seams on the outside of the garment, because then I'm sewing patches, and I'm probably going to have to get some bum pockets on these as well. So that'll cover all of the seams and stuff as we go. So yeah, I'm patchworking those together. So I've got this one which I just laid out and cut, and did the little bits of sewing for because I was running out of safety pins, and I figured I'd just sew some of it so then I could take it with me as a whole piece rather than needing to work out some other pinning situation. And this is the one that I cut out on Sunday, I think. That's again just the same sort of thing, bits of stuff safety pinned together and semi-sewn, so this just needs a few more. This is more sewn than the other one. Oh, my parcel's going to get here. And this is my sewing kit, and genuinely this is all I want in a sewing kit. If someone were to say, oh, I need a sewing kit: black thread, white thread, needles, scissors, safety pins. Let's go get my parcel. Update. So it is Saturday night in the way that is technically Sunday morning. And I did some sewing on the train, as I mentioned I was going to do on Thursday on the way out. And the project that I took with me was my patchwork jeans projects, where I've been doing all of the patchworking by hand. So I did the other leg of that. So I've got the 2 bits of back leg done. Those are complete. And then today, before I went out, because I went out this evening and I knew I was going to have like a couple of hours where I was kind of sat around not needing to do anything, I took out the front legs. So I had them all cut out and they are all pinned together. I think this is the one I didn't do any work on. So this one needs sewing. And this one is the one I did some sewing on before I decided I wanted to jump around, because I was working at a gig as a roadie, so I didn't need to do anything while the band was actually on, but I decided I wanted to jump around and sing Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff. So I've got like a little bit of this bit to do, and then quite a few of these seams are done. I've made the piece quite big. And I think I quite like that as a style. So like it's fun, but it's not like annoying. And then I'm going to put the patches over the top, so that'll continue to contribute to the aesthetic. 2 slightly fun and interesting things to bring to this. This I used to try and make a trouser pattern a few years ago, and I did make trousers from it. There's some suit trousers that I've got, but they don't fit well. Like they go on and they're all in the right place, but they are not a well-fitting pair of trousers. And for some reason I decided to label the pieces, like, by embroidering them. So it says leg front, so I've made sure that it's on the front of the leg of these jeans. And I just thought that was like a fun little detail to point out. The other thing I thought was interesting was with these ones, because I laid out the pattern paper, put the bits of fabric on it, and then just cut them to size and pinned them together in that flat form so I could then move them around. Obviously I'm using like old jeans, and this was the bottom part of it, and these are like stretchy jeans, but some of the stretch has started to go because they're old. And to lay it out on the pattern piece, the whole bottom bit of the leg, like fabric wise, is only like half the leg, if that makes sense. So like the seams for jeans go down like either side, and so I cut the old jeans, they were skinny jeans, like down the inside leg, and have opened them out, and then to give enough fabric to make just like straight leg cut non-stretch jeans according to my pattern, it's like the same as the whole leg, so it's twice as much fabric, which I just thought was interesting because it was like a direct one-to-one comparison. So that's where I am with those. I'm going to sit down and sew some more on those before I go to bed. Just going to make sure I've got enough liquid in my body, maybe eat a cookie, see how we go. So that's that. I didn't sew at all yesterday, but today I've done some more hand sewing, and I've been working on armour. I realise I spoke about it, but I have not shown it. So now I have 2 completed pieces out of 6. I'm not all that keen to finish this one like super soon, because I know I don't have any silver paint. And I'm going on holiday next week, so I'm also unlikely to be near anywhere that I can buy silver paint easily. So I don't know, maybe I'll order it online and then I don't know. I'll buy it at some point. But I've got these 2 pieces, and then I've got these 4 bits, so this is that like really stiff fabric, and I'm just going over with like this thin black to make these, and then those are going to go onto the t-shirt. I've just got my safety pins in there. These are going to go onto like the top, a really short t-shirt with a strap supporting underneath it, as I have already mentioned. The other thing I did, in an effort to use like a bigger volume of stash, I grabbed out these bits of fleece. So they're left over. They're 2 slightly different bits of fleece left over from previous projects. I can't remember what this one was from. I think this one was from when I backed a blanket for somebody, and so I had to buy a couple of meters, but like it was more than I needed. By itself, this wouldn't be enough, but I think with this, it's going to all be fine. I bought a jacket. Let me take you back 15 years ago. I bought a jacket when I was a teenager. And it's really good. It's a really good jacket. It's from Spiral Direct. And it's like a biker jacket. But the description on it was that it was a fleece. And I've been there slightly salty. I'm in my mid-30s now. So I've been hanging out for like almost 20 years, feeling slightly salty about the fact that this was advertised as fleece. And it's just like a sort of cotton hoodie material. It's been a good jacket. It has served me so well, and I'm sure it will continue to serve me well for ages. The zip started to get a bit dodgy, so at some point I'm going to have to replace that. But I decided, let's make it out of fleece. Let's make this dream come true. It's been 20 years. Let's go. So this morning, I patterned it out. I got my kebab shop paper that's not got too many grease stains on it, and I drew out all of the pattern pieces. And my goodness, are there a lot? The sleeve is in 2 parts. There are side back and side front panels. The collar is in multiple pieces with like a reinforcing bit. Like, it's got this real skinny situation going on. This is what we're working with. Like, this much pattern. Because like, despite the fact that I've been wearing this jacket and the fact that I make clothes, I had never considered like I'd never considered all of the pieces that it came in. I'd never stopped and really looked at the seams. Because like, in my head, it was just a back piece and 2 front pieces. And that's what this was. But it's actually got loads and loads of seams in it. And like, this is such a nice quality garment, and I hadn't had that appreciation until I started patterning it out this morning. Like, how good it is. Because all I previously thought was like, oh look, it has pockets. It looks cool, it has pockets, and I've been wearing it for a long time. It's not got any big holes in it or anything. But like, the back has a yoke. So it's got this like pointy piece. Like, this back is like in 2 bits, and then there's like a side back panel. It's really tricky to see because it's black and I'm holding it weird. But there's this side back panel here. There's like a lower back piece. It's got like a centre back seam, so that then when you've got these side panels, this part can be straight, and like it can join up to the shoulder, and then these are like cut slightly diagonal, so the centre front seam is like super straight, and then there's like this seam which hits like in the lower back where you're more likely to be curved. It's got like a really delicate shaping to the hip to like support like a female shape. It's got these shoulder reinforcement pieces. It's got like these extra little bits here. The collar, like I mentioned, has got like reinforcement front and back. It's 100% cotton, and the seams are like, I think they're called lapped seams. So they're really flat, so they're really sturdy, and they sit flat against your body. Like, it's not lined, and the inside is like overlocked. But yeah, it's like properly nicely put together. Shout out to the ladies in Pakistan, which is apparently where this was made, working for Spiral Direct Clothing about 20 years ago. I hope you were very fairly compensated. I really hope you did, because this is a lovely garment and I have got so much love out of it. And so much wear and just so much enjoyment from wearing it. And I'm excited to be creating another one and having such a lovely pattern as well to work with. And the other thought I had while I was drawing this out is that a garment like this, I'd say, is relatively big as far as like fabric stash requirements. Like, there's making an accessory is the smallest, or like a little bag or something like that, like a non-wearable. And then if you're making something without sleeves, that's got like a smaller fabric need. But as soon as you start making like a jacket and with sleeves and stuff, it's like you need more fabric. But where all the pieces are so small, if I've got smaller bits of fabric, I can make that work. I can sort of patch them in. So that's making me think about other other bits of fabric and like other things that I might be doing with that, where I've not got enough to make like a whole garment. But other ways that I might be able to patch them in, the ways that I might be able to have it not necessarily patchworky patchwork and not completely random or anything like that, because I don't think I'd enjoy that as an aesthetic. But maybe like, because this has kind of got a cohesive patchwork to it, like a limited colour palette. It's all quite dark colours, and then I've got a little bit of blue in there. Like the blues are the only bright colours in here. The rest of it's kind of dark, and it's sort of purples and greens and black. I like that. So potentially that's something to consider going forward. Also, while I was out, I was going to make a joke to one of my mates about being elderly, because he's a lot older than I am, so it's somewhat reasonable. And I was going to make a joke about him being sat there under a tartan blanket. And I realised I've got some like tweed, and I wasn't sure how to deal with it. I wasn't sure like what to do with it. I'm thinking I might just make it a blanket. And I'm thinking that might just be a case of hemming it. But if it's not going to fray much, I might just pull it out and put it on my bed, because my current bed situation is that I just have layers and layers of blankets, because I can't be trusted with duvets, because they always end up as a sphere inside a duvet cover. So I'm thinking that might be how I get rid of that big chunk. I'll see what the edges look like, and I'll see kind of if it's got any weird bits cut out of it, or if it's just like a rectangle, and I will make it into a rectangle, and I will make it so that the edges do not fray, which might just be I put it on my bed and it's done. There might be like a little bit more work to it to do than that, but I think that's going to be like a good future for that piece of fabric, because I want to enjoy it, because it's wool and it's going to be warm, but I get cold in bed, so I may as well enjoy it in bed. And then that sort of lines up with it being kind of my aesthetic, but not wanting to wear it as a wearable. So I think there's probably some lesson in there to be learned about things that you like, thinking about where you want them to be. Do you want to wear them on your body? Do you want them to decorate your home? And how might the functionality fit with the functions that you need? Deep philosophical thinkings. Yeah, I will check back in next time there's anything interesting to update. We are getting close to the end of the challenge. I'm thinking I'm going to stop tomorrow, and we'll see how I did. Hello and welcome to the end of my week of sewing challenge. This is the final update for you. I was going to film one this morning while my partner was out, and then my housemate came down and decided she wanted to hang out this morning, so I did not film. So the update that I was going to give this morning was that I looked at the wool, as I mentioned previously. I looked at this piece of like nice green tartan, and I did a little flame test. It is 100% wool. This kind of nice green tartan-y piece. From looking at the labels I've worked out, I got it from like a church fete that I was working at, and so it was labelled up. It's a piece of fabric that's been cut off a bolt. So I've got the two selvage edges, which needed no work, and then the pieces where it was cut at each end, I have just hemmed. So I've done a very simple blanket project. So I've now got this tartan blanket, which does fold up quite small. It's made of wool. I can wear it as like a little round the shoulders jobbo if I'm somewhere that's chilly. I can take it with me and wear it like a blanket like this. But other than that, it's just going to live on my bed for now, and then yeah, I'll make use of it as a blanket just in my life. I like blankets. It's always nice to have a few, and like 100% wool one is nice. The other project that I've got a bit of an update on, I knew I should have drunk something before I started filming, is the patchwork trousers. I have finished constructing the fabric, all of the hand sewing for the legs, so I've got all 4 panels now complete, and so it'll just be a case of constructing them. I need to do the pockets in a pocket with some kind of facing on them. I don't know what fabric I'm going to use for the pockets. Might see if I've got enough of like this, or I'll just kind of see what I've got, because I've got the rest of the fabric that I pulled, so I'll see if there's something in here that I can either piece together, or I'll use like a different bit and use one of these as like facings. And I've got a piece in here that I'd cut as a waistband previously, and I think it's still long enough, so I'm going to use that at least as the main part of the waistband, if not just as the whole thing. And then it needs like belt loops and stuff, but I'm going to construct this from the 4 panels by machine. Add the pockets, add the waistband, add a zip, add button, and then those will be done. So that's that project, not quite done, but like a lot of like a part of it has been done. And then I thought this morning, while I was procrastinating on cutting out the bits of fleece to make the jacket, because that's going to be a bigger project, I sort of thought I just want to do something. I want a little bit of a quick win. And so I decided I was going to make myself a William Morris fabric tote bag. And so I did. So I made this massive tote bag. It's got so much capacity. I'm taking it on holiday with me next week. It's the Strawberry Thief. I got quite a few bits of William Morris fabric, and they're Strawberry Thief with various different coloured backgrounds, plus one other design. I don't know what it's called. It might be labelled on it. So I pulled out all the William Morris fabric. I have used some of it before for previous bits. But I've got a bit of the navy left. This is the last of the red. Some brown, some like light blue. I just bought all of everything that they had. And then this other design in like a light blue, which is called, because sometimes it's like printed on the side. This is called Marigold. So that's that design. Like, is it just a different design? But the rest of them are Strawberry Thief. So I made a tote bag that is reversible. So the outside is red, and then it is fully reversible. The inside is blue, and I just made this within like an hour or two. This is the blue side, and I was sat there going like, this is a really easy project, and that's not to say that I am not going to find a way to fuck it up. Even something that's very simple, where you've instead of doing like the right sides together and then turn it inside out, and you've got the right sides out and all the raw edges and the seams inside, you've done a right side to wrong side, and you have to unpick it because you've just folded it inside out wrong, or like done something like that. I thought it's entirely possible I'll end up doing something like that. So I was there crowing about how I'd been really clever with my pattern matching to cut the strap, because I folded the fabric in half and then just cut straps on it to be able to make it, to make these in the reversible, like same colours, and they're like the same orientation, so the blue's on the blue and then the red is on the red. And I was feeling real smart because I'd cut it so that it was like on top of the birds' heads. And then I realised I had only cut out one strap. Like a fool, what an absolute rookie error. So I had to cut another one off, and like, despite the fact that I got the first one beautifully above the birds' heads, this one so the blue strap is just a bunch of decapitated bird heads. And then the fabric round, and like I did fold it because it got the seam allowance, so it doesn't quite look too decapitated, but it is all bird bums around the top, which is a hazard of this fabric. But I was sat there feeling all smart because I'd pattern matched it, and I was feeling all really good about it, and I'd got all the birds facing the right way up, so like everything's upright on both sides. The birds are the right way up. When you hold the bag, they're not all flying south for the winter or anything like that. So some wins, some fails, but yeah, I took a lunch break. I cut another strap. I was trying to work out, can I make it work with just one strap? And I was like, no, do it properly. And I'm so glad I did, because I've got this really nice tote bag now out of it. Very sturdy, because this is like a sort of quilting cotton, and absolutely massive. I like put all my things in it, and I think like a regular tote bag is maybe like that big. So it's got just loads of extra stuff in it. So yeah, loads of space. Excellent tote bag. Shall be using it a lot. Already used it today. Had to take my things out of it to film this update. So how did I go with my challenge? My plan was to sew this week enough to empty out one of the fabric boxes I've got, and without trying to put them all together, I can just know categorically I failed in that regard. I have used a lot of fabric. I have I've got some projects down, like done or started, or like to a level of completion which feels like quite satisfying, particularly like the patchwork trousers. Having patterned out the jacket feels really good, and pulled the fleece for it and seen like what I need does feel good. I have got rid of chunks of fabric. I have done projects which I've been kind of thinking about and had on the back burner, but I definitely didn't get through loads of fabric stash. So like I think, as I said in a previous update, it's made it really, really obvious to me that I do not need to acquire any more fabric, and I need to be quite strict, I think, actually, because sometimes people will offer you fabric and it's really hard to not just take it in, because then like someone's gonna love it and look after it, like to try and be really resistant for those, because I am not using fabric a lot. And even like a really dedicated week of sewing where I did quite a number of projects, and big projects, not just tiny little accessories or anything, like I still didn't get through anywhere near any kind of quantity of stash. So I think I've got an idea of where I want to get to, like the number of boxes that I want to have stuff in. I think I need to consider, as I'm working through stash, if I find something that I'm not loving or that I think could possibly go to a better home, to consider passing things on. And like one of the things that I realised this morning actually is like the reason that I stopped sewing so much. So I was making quite a lot of garments, and I really got into like garment making in 2020 for various obvious reasons. And I really like upped my game, so I learned how to make things. I learned how to make corsets. I learned how to make t-shirts and skirts and everything. Like I'd been making some clothes before, but not very much, and I took my knowledge to the point where when I made a pair of jeans last year, I was like, I'm done. There's literally nothing that I want to make that I don't feel comfortable making. And this morning I made this so quickly. Everything just turns around so quickly, and I realised that's the reason I stopped sewing, was because I was just ending up with so many garments in my wardrobe, just to a silly extent, and I needed to slow that down. And that's something that I keep feeling, that like there's a little bit kind of too much. It's sort of breached the containment that I've put it in. I've got more containers, and they overflow, and so I get more containers, and like I've got loads, and that's part of the reason I leaned so heavily into knitting. But I am a productive machine. So like I made a video like last year talking about how my knitting was becoming a problem because I'm a machine with it, because I'd pulled away a little bit from sewing to try and do the much slower craft of knitting. But I can't truly be stopped. I've just worked out ways to make my knitting actually go quite quickly, even without cheats and stuff on it. I've just become very competent at knitting now, more competent at knitting than I am at sewing. And so one of the things that I've lent into a little bit more now, because I've already got it in place with knitting, is doing the work that I had been with knitting, which is knitting for other people. And I think that's the way that my sewing needs to go, sewing in for other people as well as for me, and being mindful of making like home goods and things like that as well. And just, yeah, being really mindful of not letting fabric come into my stash, even if it feels like not very much, that it's going to represent quite a lot of projects and quite a lot of work to turn it into one or multiple usable items. Even just the William Morris fabric, like I only used up quite a tiny amount of it, and I made quite a big bag with it. So yeah, something really, really to keep in mind, be very strict about. Yeah. I kind of wanted to finish my journey with this challenge, and I think I will do it because I've got projects partway done. I would like to finish those, so they're just going to like tick along, and I'm going to be mindful that sewing is a thing that I can do. It is an option that I can kind of lean towards, and perhaps kind of think, oh, that would be good to use up that piece of stash, and perhaps have like a little rummage and see if there's anything there that inspires. And also to perhaps give away a few little pieces. My circus boss makes a lot of costumes, so I can also be involved in making costumes for myself and other members of the circus group. But she also uses fabric scraps to make small accessories which she's selling. So I might look through and see if I've got kind of anything in there that I can part with, just to reduce the volume down a little bit. Because I've got a lot, I don't need to be in that scarcity mindset. It's an abundance mindset. Um, but I really value being zero waste. So even when I've got really small pieces of fabric, I don't want to just throw them in the bin. So I keep them so that I can do something quilted. So I can use them as like little bits of stuffing, and so that they don't kind of go in the bin. So I'm thinking the little bits of fabric and stuff, the offcuts, because I've produced quite a lot quite quickly, a lot quicker than I normally do because I don't normally sew all that much. I am going to make a little quilted bag. I might use some of the William Morris fabric. I might also see if there's some other stuff that's in there. I think you can get quite a lot of stuffing into a single project, so I was thinking about maybe making a small bag and then giving that away. I think my best friend might quite enjoy that. Just kind of something that's like a small handbag, a little bit quilted, little clasp on it. I can see it in my head, which is making me think I should turn it into a reality for her. And then we can have matching William Morris bags when we go out together. That's cute. That's definitely what I'm gonna do. So I want to add that in as my final bit, but I'm going to stop vlogging. If you know me personally and you have me on Facebook, I'll post all of my various and sundry projects there. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. You can fit a lot of rubles in a dead rat. So I have had like a good time this week. It's been really nice to have a focus as well, like a creative focus and like a project to be working on. And I've produced some really great things, and I've got going on things that I think would have sat on the back burner for a lot longer. Yeah, onwards and upwards with my sewing journey. And good luck and happy sewing if you're sewing. And don't say yes to all the bits of fabric, and definitely don't be in the fabric shop. Don't need to buy more. Probably have loads of stash anyway. Bye.